Hi everyone, my name is Brandy. I am with Brush by Brandy, and you guys are back here for another weekly video on my YouTube channel. And this week we're going to be working on this piece right here behind me. And this one's kind of cool because I'm going to show you a different way that you can unify furniture pieces. That might be a set. Now, one thing I struggle with when doing sets is I don't like doing the same finish over and over and over again. It gets really redundant. So even if I can just change up the colors and see new color combinations, I think that kind of keeps things fresh and exciting for me. So that's what I'm going to do here. This is a complete set. I have 3 pieces that are all the same. And I'm going to do different finishes on each, and I'm going to unify them with technique, but they're all going to be in different colors. So that's my plan here. This one, I'm using a little bit of apricot, and then I'm going to add some special details to this one later. We're really going to play up all these natural details that are in the piece, which are the original moldings. This is an extremely ornate set, and I want to play those up. So I'm going to show you some tips there. But I think this is going to be a fun finish, and it's going to be an even more fun set once I put all 3 pieces together and you can really see them together. So let's go ahead and get started. I hope you guys enjoy what we've got in store this week. Click that subscribe button. Here we go. Here's where I started on this set. I picked these up off my local Facebook marketplace. I probably drove way too far to pick them up, about an hour and a half each way, but it was totally worth it. I had to get my hands on them. So it's a high boy dresser, a vanity with a mirror, and then a 3-drawer chest. You guys can find the video for the 3-drawer chest. That's already available on my YouTube channel, and this week we're going to be working on the vanity. I always start by removing my hardware and placing them in a dish to be clean, and then I'm going to spray this down with White Lightning Cleaner from Dixie Belle. So I've just sprayed my piece with cleaner, and this is one way you can tell if your piece is going to be a bleeder. Do you see these drips coming off of my piece? This is just sprayed with cleaner, and look at the color that the cleaner is turning. It's turning all brown. You can see it right here. And then look how it's dripping onto my rag. That is bleeding. I know that I need to prime this piece with Dixie Belle Boss because it's telling me right now that it's going to seep through my paint with those dark amber colors. Now that I know my piece is a bleeder, I know it needs to be covered in 2 coats of Dixie Belle Boss, which is a stain and odor blocking primer. I'm choosing Boss in gray because it's my favorite color of the Boss line from Dixie Belle. It also comes in clear and in white, but I love how the gray goes on. It lays really nice and smooth and gives great coverage. I wasn't 100% confident in my color combination for this piece. I knew that I wanted to use the apricot, and I knew that I wanted to use buttercream. I tried this with Mason-Dixon Gray, and I really liked the combo, but it wasn't exactly what I was after. So I made a custom mix color using a 50-50 mix of rusty nail and apricot with a little bit of chocolate to tint. All right, we are going to go ahead and blend out this side of my vanity. I tried several different color combinations, and this is what I've settled on. I'm going to call it Peaches and Cream. So at the top here, I have Dixie Belle Apricot, buttercream, and this is a custom mix of rusty nail and apricot. So let's go ahead and blend this out. I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to use a little bit of water, and I'm just going to refresh my apricot a little bit. I had gone over this with another color, so it's not very true, and I want this to be nice and rich. So going over these spindle details right here, I'll just take and use a sort of horizontal brush motion. I do dig it into the crevices, make sure those are all covered. I'm going to look up underneath the spindle, and then I'll clean up those brush strokes with a nice horizontal so they're nice and smooth. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and coat this drawer. Once I'm done, I will pull out my drawers and get around the drawer frame itself. If I've got any excess paint that's built up there, I just use a sander, and I'll just sand that off really quick and get my edges nice and clean so my drawers slide in and out really well. I consider that one of my finishing touches, to go ahead and make sure the drawers open and close well, that I don't have any paint. That's something I clean up at the very end once I've got my paint finish all solidified. Touching up drawer edges is something that's pretty easy to do. That's the chance I also take to clean the inside of my drawers. So any sanding dust that's gotten in there through this process, I'll sand out any stains that are in the bottom of the wood. These drawer boxes are in good shape, but they do have some staining on the inside of them. All right, so that gives me a nice smooth coat there. And I'm going to get the other side of this spindle. All right, and my next coat here, my next color is going to be the buttercream that goes in the center of this drawer. And I want to give myself a little bit of apricot that I can just kind of blend into that buttercream. I'm just going to catch the corner just to give me some paint that I can play with as I start working that buttercream in. All right, I'm switching brushes and I'm going to come back with a brush for my buttercream. And buttercream is sort of a creamy white color. Not a pure white, but it's going to look really pretty with the apricot. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to fill in around my spindles, smooth out those brush strokes, and then I'm going to work it up here once I've got the part that I want pure, because after this my brush is going to start getting a little muddy. I'm going to grab a little more paint. And I'm going to lighten up quite a bit of this apricot. I'm going to let that buttercream go pretty high up in the center of this drawer. All right, probably right around there. And then I'm going to come back with my brush for my apricot, and I'm just going to clean up around those edges anywhere that I see. I may need another coat on this. It's not covering quite as well as I'd hoped. I'm using lighter colors, and I had played with a couple colors underneath this. I want to make sure I get full coverage. All right, I'm going to give myself a little bit of buttercream in this corner to play with, and let's go down to our darker color. Just working one section at a time. So this is my custom color mix, and this has Dixie Belle Rusty Nail and Apricot in it. So right away, I know this is going to coordinate with my colors up above because it's a mix that contains the apricot, which is up above it. All right, I just want thin coats, so I just added a little bit of water. All right, so here I've got a spot where some colors are going to kind of converge, and so let me show you how I'm going to do that. I'm going to take my Dixie Belle Best Stain brush. I'm going to get my paint nice and wet. And I'm going to work those colors together, just lightly. Same thing with the corner of this drawer right here. Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and do another coat after this, so this won't be my final coat. Even though I'm pretty happy with these blends, my coverage is not exactly where I need it to be. I want to give myself a little more color down in that corner. A little bit of water because my paint is sticking and it's starting to pull a little bit, so I need to leave that spot alone. Here's a recap on the final colors I decided on. It's Dixie Belle Buttercream, Apricot, my mixture of apricot, Rusty Nail, and chocolate, and then Coffee Bean, which is at the very bottom of the legs. All right, once I've got my final colors decided, I do need to come back and give this my final coat. So because I had changed my colors up in between, my coverage wasn't quite where I needed it to be, so I need to come back and give it another coat. So this did end up being my third coat on this piece, but that's okay. It's because I changed the colors up. I did decide to bring my buttercream down a little bit further onto that bottom drawer, and that's just part of deciding what my overall color layout is going to be on the piece. So here I'm just repeating the same process that I showed you in the last video in real time, only I've sped this one up, and I'm just going to go ahead and blend out some of these transitions using my Dixie Belle Mini to lay my paint on, and then my Dixie Belle Best Stain brush and oval medium to smooth them out. Sides are traditionally much harder, so it's time to tackle the sides of this piece. I'm going to start at the top and use my apricot and then come in with a little bit of my buttercream and work those together, and then I'll start working together the two colors at the bottom. I'm always working together only small areas at a time, not trying to get overwhelmed by pay attention to the whole side, and that kind of helps to break these large flat open areas into smaller pieces and pay attention to those one at a time. With my sides all done, it's now time to tackle this mirror, and I'm excited to tell you some of my tips on painting mirrors. So my secret to painting mirrors is I don't do anything differently. You'll notice in this part of the video that I actually just paint right onto the glass. There's a few options when painting mirrors. Some people put index cards in between the glass and the wood frame. You can use playing cards. You can tape off the glass itself or use a masking paper or a liquid latex on the glass. But I find that all these steps masking the glass take just as long as coming back and scraping with a razor blade. Plus, I think you actually get cleaner edges between the mirror and the wood if you just paint right onto the glass. So I let my coats build up because it's actually easier to scrape the more coats you have. Finish all my coats of paint, do my clear coat, and then as the final step, I will come back with just a flat razor blade and I scrape all around the edges of my glass, and then I dust those the loose bits off and come back and clean it with a little bit of vinegar, and it comes back with really nice clean mirror edges. I'm also going to add all the same white detailing to the mirror that I did, that I'm going to add to the body of the piece. So let's go ahead and start adding some details to this. So I'm actually not using an artist brush on these. I'm going to use my finger, and I'm just using a little bit of buttercream paint, the same white that I used on the body of the piece. I'm dipping my finger into the little bit of the buttercream, and I'm just writing it along the top ridge of these moldings. It actually comes out really crisp and clean. It reminds me of frosting cookies. It did take 2 coats to get complete coverage of the buttercream, so I did this twice, but it's actually pretty therapeutic. Once I have all the white detailing done, I did come back and just give it a light sanding with a 220 grit sandpaper, and that just made this white perfectly smooth to the body of my piece. Let's talk about the top on this piece. So I did strip this back to bare wood using my Surf Prep sander with an 80, a 120, and then a 220 grit sandpaper, and then I came back and wiped on a coat of Dixie Belle No Pain Gel Stain in the color Walnut. There is this carved detail around the edge of the piece, and so I sealed it in clear coat, and then I'm coming back with a little bit of my buttercream paint, and I'm going to do a color wash. So what I did is brush it all on, make sure I get it into those details, and then I'm coming back with a rag and I'm just going to wipe it back, and that's going to leave the buttercream paint just in the details of the top. The hardware on these pieces is almost as beautiful as the details themselves, so I went ahead and gave these a good cleaning in a 50-50 mixture of white vinegar and water. They still have a little bit of discoloration, and so I'm just coming back with a little bit of gilding wax, and this is a 50-50 mixture of silver and gold, which makes this beautiful white gold color. I'm just brushing it over the top of my hardware using an artist brush, and then I sealed it in a clear satin lacquer for protection. This is going to wear beautifully, and I love this faded aged gold look. It's going to go with the softness of the pieces themselves. If you guys watch my videos, you know I add black wax detailing to just about everything I do, and these are no exception. I added some black wax detailing to the insides of these frames, and then I'm coming back with my 50-50 mixture of silver and gold gilding wax, and I'm just hitting the outside of the frames. I wanted to keep my detailing on this piece pretty subtle so that the white moldings really stand out, so it's just a little bit of gilding wax and a little bit of black wax on these. So every vanity needs a vanity stool, right? This one didn't come with one, so I found one off my local Facebook marketplace, which was this, it's a more modern chair and it's made of metal. I decided to go ahead and spray it in some gold spray paint. When I'm choosing a gold spray paint, I just make sure that I look for the highest quality that I can find. Skip the cheap ones. They usually get what you pay for with spray paints. It's worth it to get the nicer quality paints. I need to recover the seat of this stool as well. It just came in an aged white fabric. So this is just some fabric that I had left over in my stash. And I love that the colors of it tie into the colors that I'm using on this complete set. So if this were to go in a room with all of the pieces, it would tie them all in together. It's got the green and the blue and some of the pink as well. It's a nice stripe, so it coordinates with the colors I've got in the piece. I flipped my seat over and I'm just stapling all the fabric on with a staple gun. And then I'm going to come back and trim the excess with a pair of scissors. My seat is completely redone. Here's the final piece on this one. It wows for sure. It's absolutely beautiful, and I think you can see why vanities are some of my favorite pieces to do. Number one, they're usually for women, so they can be over the top feminine with no apologies. I always love the dramatic looks of them, and this one does not disappoint. That custom coral color at the bottom is one I think I'm going to be using more often. That's rusty nail and apricot with a little bit of chocolate in it. You can find links for everything I used in this video in the description for this post. As always, you can find more Brush by Brandy on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, and on my website at brushbybrandy.com. Expect to see 2 more installments for this. You can find one for the green highboy coming up, and the blue 3-drawer chest is already out on my YouTube channel.